Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. Thank you for joining me tonight. So thank you for joining the Wealthy Trustee webinar. Tonight, we are going to learn everything about trust. So I'm going to teach you guys what is a trust entity, the different contributors. Hello, everyone. And how you can, hold on a second. Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining me tonight. So thank you for joining the Wealthy Trustee webinar tonight. So I'm going to teach you how you can build wealth with the trust. So we are going to get started. Allow me to share my screen. Okay. Perfect. All right, perfect. So I am Christina Yvette. I am going to be your instructor for tonight. I am a trust strategist. I have been a trustee since 2015 when I created my real estate investment company. And the reason why I actually became a trustee is because I bought my first investment property, and my mentor at the time, he had all of his properties in a trust. And so he advised me to set up a trust in order to protect that house that I was buying, because anything could happen, right? People, they can get injured, and I didn't want that to happen and someone, take the property or sue me or anything like that. So I set up a trust, and I've been a trustee ever since. And so I've helped hundreds of people become trustees as well. So let's keep going. Hold on one second. There we go. All right, so disclaimer, this is not legal advice or tax advice. I am not a licensed attorney or a certified public accountant. So I am a trustee, and I teach people how to become a trustee. So the objective for tonight is you guys are going to learn what is a trust, the different contributors, because a trust is a contract, so there's different people involved or parties, how to operate a trust, some tax strategies, some wealth strategies, and asset protection. So how do these companies pay little to no taxes, right? So we see these big billion-dollar organizations, the Trump organization, Berkshire Hathaway, Amazon, right? All billion-dollar companies. And we've heard Trump say that he doesn't pay taxes because he's smart. We heard the owner of Berkshire Hathaway say that he pays less taxes than his secretary. So how is it that they do that? And the way is that they are structured, and they have trust within their structure. So they're structured a specific kind of way to where they reduce their tax liability, and they have trust within their structure. So if the big businesses are doing it, you should probably be doing it as well. So now we have the $1 bill, right? And so my question to you is, do you see the word trust in the $1 bill? So somebody can come off mute and answer the question.
Yes, after we.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Queen. So it says, in God we trust. And so a lot of people think that that's just a statement, but in actuality, that's the name of the trust that the United States uses. Okay, so if you were to review contract law, when you're using the word trust, you should only be referring to a trust entity. So In God We Trust is actually a trust entity, and the United States of America is ran as a corporation, okay? And so with the United States of America, they actually have a trust set up for everyone who either has a birth certificate or a social security card. And so if you have any one of those two instruments, those are actually contracts, and they have a trust associated with those contracts. And they also have life insurance tied to the trust, okay? So if the United States of America is doing it, you should also be doing it, okay? So we're gonna learn what is a trust entity. A lot of people, they're not familiar. They probably never have heard of a trust, or some people have heard of the trust, but they, don't know what it is, right? And so a trust is an entity. It is considered a living, breathing entity, just like you and me, right? We are living, breathing entities. And so a trust is just like us, right? A trust is also a contract, okay? So it's a stack of papers and you get it notarized, and it's structured exactly like a contract. There are several different parties involved in the contract, which we'll go over. So with that contract, there are several sections in a trust, okay? So one section is an indenture, where you have all of your provisions. That's the rules and regulations that you want to put in place on how your trust is supposed to be ran by the trustee, okay? So if you want to put any restrictions, like a beneficiary, can't receive more than $50,000, you can put those restrictions, okay? That's just one example. The other portion is a declaration. So with this contract, you have to declare what it is, and you have to declare what it is not. So, for example, a trust is not a corporation. It is not an LLC. It is not a statutory entity. It is not a partnership. It's not any of those things. And so we have to clearly define that within our indenture. And then you have to declare what it is. So it is a trust between a grantor and a trustee, and it is a contract, okay? So you have to just define the type of contract that it is. It's a private contract. So now let's go over the different parties involved in this contract. So you have three main parties. The first one is a grantor. The grantor is the creator on paper, okay? So that is the person who has established the trust, and they are establishing the trust for the benefit of someone else, not themselves, right? It depends on the type of trust, but typically not themselves, right? And so they're pretty much establishing the trust for the beneficiaries, okay? The grantor, other names for grantor that you might hear out here are settlor or trustor. So that's just the creator. And the grantor, besides setting up the trust, they usually are the person who is going to initially fund the trust too, okay? Or put some type of asset into the trust. The next party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the fiduciary or the controller of the trust, right? So we learned earlier that the trust is an entity, and it's seen as a living entity, but it's not alive, so it needs a representative. So the trustee is the authorized representative that is going to be signing on behalf of the trust. So that is the individual who's going to be controlling all the assets, controlling all the money, and pretty much, operating the trust on a day-to-day basis, okay? So for example, if the trust owns, real estate, then the trustee is the one that's managing that real estate. The next party is the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is the inheritor of the trust. So eventually, if the trust is terminated, then all of the assets and funds that are in the trust are going to be passed down to the beneficiaries. So they are the persons who eventually own the assets or are going to inherit the assets. Their number one duty is for them to understand the trust and for them to understand the trustee powers, because the trustee is the individual who is operating the trust for the beneficiaries, okay? So they're pretty much representing the beneficiaries and doing what's in the best interest of the beneficiaries, okay? So with that being said, the beneficiaries have no power and no control. If you give the beneficiaries any power or control, then you're not operating a trust legally, okay? So there's different types of trusts, right? We have revocable, irrevocable, land trust, charitable trust, living trust. So let's just go down a couple of categories. So the first one that I want to talk to you guys about is express versus implied. So an implied trust is an oral trust. Just like how you can have oral contracts or oral agreements between two people, you can also have an oral trust. I do not recommend that. On the contrary, you have an express trust. An express trust is a written trust. So it's a contract, it's on paper, it's on black and white. That's the type of trust that you want. Next, we have simple versus complex. So it's pretty much the way it sounds. You have a simple trust, which is shorter in nature. And with a simple trust, you have to, it's mandatory that you do distributions to the beneficiaries. If you have a complex trust, then it's optional for you to do distributions, and it's usually longer in nature. So it's like 50, 60 pages, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is statutory versus non-statutory. So statutory means that that entity has to abide by the state statutes. So every single state has their own statutes, codes, laws, whatever you guys want to call it, but their own, rules and regulations. Okay. And so if you have an entity that is statutory in nature, it means that it has those state statutes embedded in the contract, and it can be regulated by the state. Okay. So with a statutory trust, usually that trust is registered in the state. And like I said, it can be regulated. You really don't want that. And then another thing is that with the statutory trust, you can only use it in that specific state. So let's just say that you went to an attorney, and typically attorneys, they will create a trust for you that is statutory because that's within their guidelines, right? They're going to put the state statutes in there, and you can only use it in that state. So you're going to be restricted. On the contrary, the other type of trust is a non-statutory trust, meaning that it doesn't have any state statutes or codes. It operates under common law. So if it operates under common law, that means that you can use it in the entire nation and in all of the U.S. territories if you are operating a domestic trust, okay? So with that being said, that's the type of, trust that you want, one where you can use it and you have flexibility, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is revocable versus irrevocable. So with a revocable trust, that means that the grantor has revocability, which means that they can make changes to the trust. They can make changes to the trust indenture, the minutes and all that. And then they can also change the beneficiaries and the trustees. They can also terminate the trust whenever they want. And if they were to put any assets into the trust, they can remove or revoke the assets, take the assets back, okay? With a revocable trust, because it can be changed by the person that created it, it's not seen, it can actually be pierced in court, right? So it doesn't have, it doesn't have the strength that it needs to hold up in court like it's supposed to. So if it ends up being pierced in court, that means that you have to actually produce the entire trust in the courtroom, and that is actually going to hinder you because now your trust is no longer private, because we know that all court cases are public, so it now becomes public records, okay? So that is very risky. And on the contrary, you have irrevocable. So an irrevocable trust is a trust where the grantor has irrevocability, okay? So that means that the grantor, the creator, they cannot terminate the trust, they cannot change any of the other parties, which is the trustee or the beneficiary, and if they were to put assets, they cannot revoke the assets back, okay? Because the trust is irrevocable, it's seen as a bulletproof trust because 9 times out of 10, if it were to go to court, the judge would choose not to pierce that trust because it's irrevocable. Okay, so it holds up better in terms of like contract law and trust law. Okay, so out of all the categories that I just mentioned, you want one, an express trust that's written. Two, you want a complex trust. Three, you want a non-statutory trust so you can use it in any state or territory. And then four, you want an irrevocable trust because then it's going to actually maintain its privacy and most likely not be pierced in the event of a lawsuit. Okay. So how do we create a trust? One, you want to determine what type of trust you want to create. So we just went through different categories and types of trust. So you have to determine which one is right for you, your family, or your business. Number two, you want to determine the trust name. So when you're naming a trust, you do not want to use your personal name, okay? That is like a dead giveaway because we are actually setting up the trust so that we can remain private, so that we can conceal our identity, okay? And so you do not want to name the trust after yourself. You can use your initials, you can use your last name because, you know, last names are pretty common. You can use other terms like legacy, dynasty, you know, generation, things like that, okay? If you're naming a business trust, then you can use terms like, you can actually use initials like LLC because those are just initials and it'll appear as an LLC. Even though it's not an LLC, just because you use the initials. You can use company, co, corp, all of those different abbreviations, okay? So naming your trust is very important. So now, after you've named your trust, then you want to appoint the different parties involved, right? So we're going to appoint a grantor. So if you are setting up an irrevocable trust, then you do not want to be the grantor because you're going to have irrevocability, which means you have no power, no control. You want to be the trustee, the person who has all the power and all the control, but you can't serve as both parties. So you're going to appoint yourself to be the trustee, and then you're going to appoint someone else to be the grantor. That someone else can be a friend or a family member. It could be a coworker, a cousin, you know, a parent, a grandparent. So whoever is able to actually notarize the trust with you to get it legal, okay? And then you want to appoint your beneficiaries. So grantor, trustee, or beneficiaries, all of those parties can be either entities or living people, okay? So you could also have another trust, set up a trust, or be the beneficiary of a trust or the trustee, okay? So with the beneficiaries, right, what you want to do is that is going to be like your next of kin or your children, or it could be another trust or corporation or, you know, whoever you want to inherit your assets, okay? And lastly is the successor. So the successor is a successor trustee. That is the individual that's going to take over after you, right? Because tomorrow is not promised. So in the event that something happens to you where you either resign, become incapacitated, or expire, then your successor takes over. So you need to choose a successor as soon as possible. And the successor can be the beneficiary, but they cannot be the sole beneficiary, okay? And with the successor, what they're gonna do is you are gonna appoint them. They do have to accept the position. Once they accept the position, they are just going to remain on hold or dormant until it's time for them to take over. So once you step down, then the successor will take over and continue to operate the trust where you left off. All right, next is number 3, you're going to create the trust agreement. Like we said, it's a contract. So at the end of this webinar, I'll show you an example of what a trust looks like, but it looks like a general contract that you would write, you know, for any other types of agreements, okay? Number 4 is notarize the trust. So when you are legalizing the trust, it does need to be notarized, and it needs to be notarized by the grantor and the trustee. And that is what is solidifying the contract or the trust. And now after you notarize it, it's legalized and you can start operating it, okay? So what does operation look like? Well, the first thing that you have to do is you have to open up a trust bank account. But prior to opening up that trust account, what you're going to do is you're going to have a board meeting, okay? So like I said, the trust is an entity, a living entity, but it cannot run itself. It needs you to run the trust. And so you have to have board meetings on things that you're going to do. So the first board meeting that you want to have is one where you are expressing that you're going to open up a checking account or a brokerage account or a savings account on behalf of the trust, okay? And so when you are actually opening up this bank account, you are going to need an EIN or a 98 number, okay? That 9-digit number. And then you're also going to need a certificate of trust. So the certificate of trust is a notarized document. So it's usually 1 page, 1 to 2 pages, and it pretty much serves as proof of identity for the trust, because you have to understand that the trust is private. So your trust, let's just say that it's 80 pages. You are not going to bring all 80 pages to the bank with you, okay? Because that's exposing your trust. So what you're going to do is you are going to provide the certificate of trust, okay? So you don't want anyone to see your trust, and you're not going to allow anyone to take copies of your trust or anything. So if you need to do business, meaning opening up a bank account, purchasing a house, a car, doing stocks, bonds, whatever it is, you're going to provide the certificate of trust. That is proof of identity that the trust does exist, because with a trust, because it's private, they're not able to look it up online on the public records to prove that it's an actual entity. They have to go based off of your word. And so if you provide that certificate of trust, then they are able to, move forward and open up the bank account or, proceed with whatever type of, assets you're acquiring, okay? Next is transferring assets into the trust. So that is one of the most important steps, okay? Because your assets are going to be protected if they are removed from your personal name and put into the trust, okay? Because a trust is very hard to sue. And some attorneys, when they see that these assets or businesses are owned by trust, they drop the case, because it's a lot of, it's challenging in order to even serve a trust, okay? So when we are transferring assets, let's just say, for example, that we are transferring a house, right? So as of today, your personal residence is in your personal name, okay? And so you are actually on the public records. People can see that you own that property, which means that you become low-hanging fruit, because if your neighbor wanted to sue you, they could very well sue you, because they are able to just search online and see that, that John Smith owns that house, okay? So the way that you are going to transfer property is by deeding it over from your personal name into the trust. And then you get that deed notarized and you submit it to the county, and now they are able to change the ownership from your personal name into the trust. And now your name is removed from the public records. So no one is going to be able to know that you own that house. So now your identity is concealed, and it shows that the trust owns the property, okay? Which is a beautiful process. And number 7 is operating the trust, right? So now that you put that property into the trust owns the property. So that means that the trust has that financial responsibility dealing with that asset. So for example, the trust now has to pay taxes. The trust now has to pay the mortgage, the utilities, maintenance, and all the things associated with that asset. So that's what operation of the trust looks like, is you as the trustee now having to maintain the assets or do whatever you need to do, for the trust, okay? So Asset protection is the number one reason why you want to set up a trust, okay? And you are going to put yourself in a position to where you're operating 100% private, because people are not going to know the existence of the trust or the parties involved, right? So they're not going to know who the grantor is, who the trustee is, or who the beneficiaries are. You will disclose information on a need-to-know basis. So like I said, if you were to go to a bank, and open up a bank account, they're going to ask you who's the trustee. And so you have to disclose that you're the trustee. That's need to know information, but they don't need to know who the beneficiaries are or the other parties involved. Okay. So now when we're talking about asset protection, dealing with a trust, your trust can protect you from lawsuits, divorces, bankruptcies, heavy taxation, probate, foreclosures, and much more, okay? So let's just touch on a few of these. So the first one is lawsuits, right? So for example, let's just say that you were running a business and a customer decide to sue the business, right? Well, they can easily go to the Secretary of State's website. They can see who owns that LLC or who the officer is of that corporation, and they can initiate the lawsuit, right? And let's just say that the company actually wasn't able to fulfill the judgment, right? So at that point, the judge can decide to pierce the corporate veil, and then they can go after the owner of the business. So if they go after you, that means that everything that's in your personal name, all of your assets is up for grabs, right? So they can garnish your wages, they can freeze your bank account, they can seize your assets, okay, if you were to lose that lawsuit. And so the way you want to protect yourself from this particular type of lawsuit is by removing yourself from your business as the owner. You're going to conceal your identity so that something like that, if it were to happen, then they would actually have to go and sue the trust, right? So what you want to do is right now, if your business is in your personal name, you want to do an amendment. You want to remove yourself as the authorized representative or member of the company, and then you want to put the trust as the authorized member. And then at that point, the trust owns the LLC or the company. And if you were to get sued and they were to pierce the corporate veil and go after the owner, they would be going after the trust. So that is your first layer of protection when you are dealing out here in business or commerce, okay? Let's talk about divorce. So with a divorce, it's a lawsuit as well, right? It's a lawsuit between two people, a husband and a wife. And with that particular situation, usually all of their assets are involved, okay? And so it's only the assets that are in their personal name. So if you were to be dealing with a trust, then everything that is inside of the trust cannot be included in your divorce, because a trust is a separate entity from you, okay? So the two individuals are the people that are included in the divorce, and the trust is separate, okay? I have a client who is getting a divorce after 10 years, and halfway through his marriage, he set up a trust, and he acquired 5 properties in that trust. So right now, during the divorce proceedings, or when they were doing the divorce, the only properties that were involved were the personal home and one other home. So everything dealing with the trust and the properties in the trust were not included in the divorce. So you want to protect yourself. So if you're married, I usually tell people you get a trust and your spouse gets a trust, okay? So next is heavy taxation. So with heavy taxation, we know that generally we give like half of our income to the IRS, okay? And so imagine if you were able to reduce your taxation, right? So let's just say now you're not giving away half. Let's just say you're only giving 10% of your income. That 40%, you can now use it for investments, okay? So one of the trusts that we use is a tax-exempt trust. And with that, tax exempt trust is literally exempt from paying federal taxes, okay? So it's a nonprofit, and it's labeled as a 508c1a. So it is the only exception to not having to file for a 501. So it is what we call, and the reason is because of the separation between church and state, okay? So with that particular trust, if you are a W-2 employee, what you can do is you can donate up to 60% of your gross revenue or income to the 508c1a. Okay, so that means that if you are generating $100,000 in your on W-2, right, at your job, then what you can do is you can donate up to $60,000 to your trust, to your nonprofit trust, and you would only be taxed on $40,000. So that means that you would be saving thousands and thousands of dollars. And those thousands of dollars that are not going to the IRS, what can you do with it? You can invest it, right? You can invest it in crypto, real estate. You can do, whatever it is that you need to do with that money, okay? So it is extremely powerful for you to put yourself in a position to where you're reducing your taxes so that you're able to build wealth faster by allocating that money that would have been sent to the IRS to other investments, okay? So the next one I want to talk about is probate. So with probate, it is inevitable, right? So if you have an asset in your personal name and let's just say that you have a will is not going to prevent your family from going to probate, okay? So you need to have your affairs in order to prevent probate. So there's only one way for you to actually avoid probate, and that way is by having a trust, right? So for example, let's just say that you have, a house in your personal name, you have a car in your personal name, you have some credit card debt, some student loan debt, and you didn't wake up tomorrow, right? You have children, right? So how do you expect your house to be transferred from your name to your child's name? The only way that that's possible is by them having to go to court, particularly probate court. Okay, so a lot of people, they unfortunately don't have their affairs in order. And if that were to happen, then that means that your state, wherever you live, is going to have to issue you an estate. And if the state issues you an estate, then obviously it's going to go to probate. So that means that that estate needs to be represented in court and by a probate attorney, and then it is going to be seen in probate court, okay? So now all of your assets, right? That house, that car, the 6 figures that you had in the bank, all of those assets are going to go to your estate, okay? The first thing that's going to happen is your debt is going to be paid off, because those creditors are going to go after your estate. So the car loan company, the student loan company, the credit card company, all of them are going to go after your estate. And the judge is going to just say, approve, 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 and that money is going to start leaking out, okay? So that's going to be less money for your inheritors. And then you have attorney fees and you also have court fees. So all of that stuff is going to be taken out of your estate, and then your children or your next of kin, whoever, they are going to get what's left over. Okay, so that is if you don't have your affairs in order. Let's just say that you do have your affairs in order and you have the house under a trust, the car under a trust, the bank account under a trust, and you were not to wake up tomorrow. Well, there's no transfer that needs to happen, because all of those assets are going to remain intact in the name of the trust. Your children are the beneficiaries, okay? So it ultimately goes to them anyways. And what is going to happen also is that your debt is going to die with you. So the student loan debt, the student loan debt company, they can't go after your trust because that's a separate entity from you, right? So that dies with you, credit card debt, all kind of debt. Okay. So that is the position that you want to put yourself in, because you have to understand, right? When there's a loss, you are, if you drag your family through the probate process, like you're doing them a major disservice. So you want to have your affairs in order. A lot of people think that a will is good enough. It is not. A will mandatory goes to probate. It is only a wish list. Okay. So let's move on. What is the wealth building formula? Well, we have three pillars here. The first one is structure, the second one is credit, and the third one is invest. Okay. So what we're going to do is with structure, we're going to, what is happening here? All right, so with structure, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to talk about the three different types of trust that you want to have. You want to have a business trust, a private family trust, and a tax exempt trust, okay? So with the business trust, right, that is primarily if you guys are going to be conducting any type of business, okay? So for example, if you have an LLC, what you can do is you can actually have this business trust act as a holding company, okay? And so what's going to happen is, like I said earlier, you're going to remove yourself from the business as the owner, and you're going to put the trust as the owner. And so now it's going to be the holding company, right? So you're not going to operate it like you would the business. The business is going to remain in operation as you usually was doing, okay? And so it's going to be a holding company. Or another thing that you can do with the business trust is you can conduct business with it, right? So if you don't have an LLC or S corporation or any of those things right now, then you can just, name your business trust, whatever you need to name it, and you can conduct business, right? So if you have an e-com company or if you have a real estate company, things like that, then you can just operate your business as usual with a business trust. It doesn't need to be registered. It can be unincorporated, okay? And with that, let's just say, for example, that your LLC generated $100,000, right? Well, with that revenue from your LLC, what you can do is you can do a K-1 distribution, and you can distribute 100% of that revenue to the authorized member, right? And so the authorized member is going to be the business trust. So now the LLC is going to transfer 100,000 to the business trust, and the LLC is going to pay 0 taxes. Now that 100,000 is at the business trust level, okay? And with that being said, the business trust, what you'll do is you can do, your expenses for the business trust, and then you can, so let's just say that your expenses are 10,000. So now you have 90,000 left that you would be required to pay taxes on. A for-profit trust pays 38% in taxes, okay? So do you want to pay 38%? So another thing that you can do is you can actually transfer that money or distribute to the beneficiary. So what you want to do is you want to make the beneficiary of the business trust your private family trust, because at the end of the day, your business is making money so that your family can spend it. So that 90,000 is going to go to your private family trust. So with that being said, now the 90,000 is sitting in your family trust, and what are you going to do with it? You are going to spend it on whatever you need to spend it for your family, right? So that's groceries, that's mortgage, that's kids' tuition, that's your insurance policy, all of these things, okay? And let's just say that you expended it down to 10,000, right? Because one thing about these entities, is that you actually spend the money first and you pay taxes on what's left over. Okay, so that's a beautiful process. It's very different from what we do on the personal side, which is we, work first, pay taxes, and then get to spend whatever's left over. Okay, so with that being said, you got 90,000 into the private family trust. Let's just say that you spent 80 of it, right? And so now you have 10,000 left. You have to pay taxes on the 10,000. 38%, $3,800. Okay. So what's going to happen is instead of you paying that 3,800, you can actually you can donate that money to your 508c1a tax exempt trust. Okay. So you donated that $10,000 and now you have a 0% tax liability for the private family trust. Okay. So your LLC paid zero in taxes, your business trust paid zero in taxes or had a 0% tax liability, your private family trust had a 0% tax liability, and your tax exempt trust received 10,000, and that trust doesn't have to report any taxes to the federal government, okay? Because it is a donation, okay? So you don't have to pay taxes on donations. You only pay taxes on income. So that 10,000 is a donation, okay? So with that being said, you're done paying taxes. Okay. So that's a beautiful structure. And that structure is going to help you with building wealth. So the next pillar is credit. Okay. So we have corporate credit that you guys can establish with your trust, and it's identical to business credit. It's identical to business credit. Okay. So you know how your LLCs, they have, corporate credit. So it's the same thing with your trust. Okay. So you definitely want to leverage credit because we have credit on our personal side, but that's just one credit profile. So why not build credit on the trust side so that you can leverage that as well? Because typically with business credit, you get higher lines of credit. Okay. And then you are able to use that credit in order to invest. Okay. So what's going to happen is you guys are going to build business credit, and that is going to serve as money that you can use initially in order to acquire assets for the trust. Because ultimately your goal should be to have the trust self-sustained, right? You don't want to be pouring in your W-2 income into the trust. You want the trust to be able to acquire its own assets and generate its own income. And that's how you're going to be building wealth with the trust. Okay. So besides corporate credit, you can also qualify for grants because you have a nonprofit within your structure. So you can apply for nonprofit grants, and then with those grants, you can use it within your trust. Okay, and you can use it to also build wealth with those funds as well. Okay, so the next pillar is invest. So with invest, there are two investments that I recommend. The first one is an index universal life insurance policy, and the second one is real estate. Okay. So with an index universal life insurance policy, that is going to be your first asset that you acquire with your trust. And the reason that you want to do it that way is because you want the trust to actually be the owner of the policy, the beneficiary of the policy, and the payer of the policy. Okay. So with an IUL policy, you are going to put yourself in a position to where you are paying yourself first. So all the income that is coming into your business or coming into your household via W-2, what you want to do is you want to park it in your insurance policy and then borrow the funds back out. So with an IUL policy, it is seen as an asset and it is a liquid asset. Okay. So with that, it actually has an account associated with it that builds cash value, okay? And with an index universal life insurance policy, it actually mirrors the index. So if the S&P 500 is doing 9%, then the insurance company is going to match your cash value and give you a 9% return, okay? So they're going to give you a 9% return on whatever you have in cash value, which is a beautiful process because you're going to be able to take advantage of compound interest, okay? And you're going to put yourself in a position to pay yourself first. The way that you're going to do that is, let's just say that you make $10,000 a month or a week in your job, right? W-2. So typically what happens is the IRS gets paid, right? The Social Security, Medicare, 401k, and then you get what's left over. It's deposited into your checking account, and then you pay your bills. You pay your mortgage, you put gas in the car, your car note, kids' tuition, all this stuff. And then whatever is left over is what you save, right? So that 10,000, you spent 8 and you have 2 left, okay? So what you want to do is you want to switch it up, right? Because the way that you're doing things now is you're only able to save whatever is left over after you spend all of your money on your bills. And so that is not a way for you to build wealth, build wealth fast, okay? And so what you want to do is, instead of you paying the mortgage and the utilities and all that stuff, you want to deposit that 10,000 into your IUL policy, okay? So now your cash value just went up by 10, and it's going to mirror the market, right? So you're going to get a return. But the beautiful thing is that you can actually borrow from your cash value. So you just deposit $10,000 into your policy, your cash value went up by 10,000. You go ahead and contact your insurance carrier and let them know that you want a loan. So your insurance carrier is going to look at your policy, and they're going to, obviously they consider it an asset. So they're going to see that you have 10,000 in cash value, and they're going to issue you a loan from their personal money, from their funds, from their reserve. So they're not going to take the money out of your cash value. Okay. So your money, your 10,000 is going to stay inside of your policy, and it's going to make 9%. You're going to borrow the 10,000 from the insurance company's money, and then now you're able to pay your bills. So they're going to either issue you a check or give you direct deposit. Now you're able to pay your mortgage, your utilities, and everything that you needed to pay. So that is what I mean by paying yourself first, right? Instead of you paying everyone else first, pay yourself first by parking that money inside of your policy and then borrowing it back out. The beautiful thing about an IUL policy is that you do not have to pay the loan back. The loan will be satisfied through the death benefit, okay? So that's one of the beautiful things. The other one is real estate. So what you can do is you have built corporate credit. So let's just say that you got a line of credit or a credit card for $50,000, right? What you want to do is you want to strip the credit card for the $50,000, and then you want to use that as a down payment on real estate. Okay. So if you're getting, like, if you are purchasing an investment property, usually you have to put down 20%. Okay. So that 50,000 is going to be used as a down payment, and is going to be used to satisfy that that 20%. Okay. And then at that point, you're getting a mortgage for 80, you use 20% from your credit, and you have literally bought real estate zero down. Okay. So that is how you're going to get 2 assets for your trust and put your trust estate in the position to where it's sustaining itself. Okay. So the next thing is how to transfer wealth, right? So you want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything, right? We've heard this out there in the community: own nothing but control everything. So that is the definition of stewardship. That is where you are being a good steward of your wealth and you're guiding it in the right direction, okay? Versus ownership. Ownership is where you are proud to be the owner of this asset, but the asset is not protected because it's going to end up in probate. Okay. So if you want to avoid probate, this is how you are going to transfer your wealth appropriately. Okay. So with your trust, because the house is owned by a trust, right? That your trust entity has beneficiaries, your trust is going to create trust certificate units. Those trust certificate units are identical to stock certificate units, okay? So just how a stock certificate represents ownership in a corporation, a trust certificate represents beneficial interest in a trust. So it pretty much represents ownership, but we don't use the term ownership because with a living entity, no one can own a living entity, okay? So just like you're a living entity, no one can own you, no one can own a trust. So you have beneficial interest, okay? So for example, your trust is going to create 100 trust certificate units, and then you're going to disperse them to your beneficiaries, okay? So let's just say that you have, 5 beneficiaries. So you want to distribute it equally, so you're going to give everyone 20 TCUs. So the amount of TCUs that somebody have is going to represent their beneficial interest. So let's just say that there was, $100,000 that needed to be dispersed. Well, you're going to disperse it according to how many TCUs the beneficiary has. So out of this 100,000, if I have 20 TCUs, I'm going to receive $20,000. That is how it goes. Okay. Another thing is that if your trust is terminated, right? So usually a trust will operate it for a minimum of 7 years and a maximum of 100 years. Okay. And with that being said, at that 100-year mark, if you want your trust to continue, you have to renew it. Okay. So whoever the trustee is at that time, because one thing is for sure is that your trust is going to outlive you. So whoever the trustee is at that time, they need to renew the trust if you want the trust to continue to operate for generations and generations to come. Okay. So with that being said, if the trust is terminated, then that means that the trustee has to disperse or dispose of the assets. And so they have to disperse it to the beneficiaries. So if there's 100 houses, then those 100 houses need to be dispersed or deeded over to the TCU holders, okay? So that's one way in order to transfer wealth. And the next thing I want to talk about is preservation, right? Because we've seen it where these families that have, multi-million dollars, by the third generation, they're broke. And that is because they didn't have preservation clauses in place, or what we call spendthrift clauses, where the people who didn't make the money spent all of the money. Okay. And so the way that you preserve the wealth is by having the trust take out an insurance policy on every single person associated with the trust, right? Because you have to understand these are human assets, right? You are the trustee. You are a human asset in the trust. You are a human resource. And if anything were to happen to you, then the trust needs to be compensated, right? So the trust is going to take out a policy on you, the trustee. The trust is going to be the owner, the payer, and the beneficiary of the policy. If you expire, then that death benefit is going to go to the trust. The trust is now going to be replenished and compensated for that loss. The same thing is going to happen to every single beneficiary, okay? So every beneficiary that is born into the trust estate, by the time they're 30 days old, the trust is going to take out a policy on them, okay? So let's just say that this beneficiary that was, that received a policy at 30 days old, now fast forward is 18, and they want to buy their first car, right? Well, at that point, what can happen is they can go to the dealership, they can pull their credit, they can get a car loan for $30,000. They can start paying, $500 a month, right? That's one way that they can do it. Or what they can do is they can go to the trust and they can take out a loan from the trust for the $30,000 to be able to go buy their car cash. Okay. So if they were to go to the trust, then the trustee would issue them a check for $30,000 and execute a promissory note. Okay. And so now the beneficiary would now be paying that car note to the trust. So that means that the trust is going to be, gaining interest, which is a beautiful process. But let's just say that the beneficiary decided to default on the loan and did not pay back that $30,000. Well, it wasn't a risk to the trust because that money came from their insurance policy. Okay. So the trustee went to the insurance company, borrowed out $30,000 from that beneficiary's policy. That money was deposited into the trust fund account, and the trustee issued out the check for the $30,000. So that $30,000 actually, one, didn't come from the trust fund, but two, doesn't need to be paid back because it's going to be replenished by the death benefit. Okay. So that is, that's the process that you want to take. So the books that I recommend are What Would the Rockefellers Do? It's a really good book. It teaches you about utilizing trust, and I had it somewhere around here. That's right here, guys. So it teaches you about utilizing trust and insurance together, okay, so that you can build wealth like the Rockefellers. The next book that I recommend is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2, teaches you about trusteeship and how to operate a trust. The next one is Family Wealth, where it teaches you how to run a family office. And the next one is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust because there are hundreds of trust, okay? What I want to do is I want you to take action, right? Take action on the information that I provided you guys tonight. Because a trust can be your new form of doing business, right? It could be your new form of, making money, and it can solve a lot of your problems dealing with asset protection and, saving on taxes. So you want to treat your trust like a big business, right? Like a Google, like an IBM, like a Facebook, Amazon, like that. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to show you this video of a trustee that actually took action on the information that he was given in our program.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christine, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. Don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. Things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. Definitely will recommend you to others.
Perfect. I'm not sure who is like drawing on the screen, but it is like very annoying. So I do apologize for like all this scribble scrabble. It looks like someone named Donald is doing it. So hold on for me 1 second. Yes, Donald Brown. Okay. We're going to remove you from the Zoom call. All right, perfect. So sorry about that, guys. I really don't know why people have a thrill in trying to, ruin presentations. But yeah, I removed that person from the Zoom call, whoever was actually drawing on the screen. So hold on for me 1 second. All right, guys, back to where we left off. We're almost done. It's 9:05, so hopefully we can get you out here in a timely manner. So back to the presentation. So what I want to tell you guys is that we have a program, it's called the Wealthy Trustee Program. And with that, you get 3 trusts, right? And so generally 3 trusts will run you about $15,000, right? The tax strategies that we teach you guys will cost you, or have you save over $42,000, right? Actually setting up a corporate credit for your trust can run you about $5,000, right? Transferring your assets into a trust can run you about $5,000, right? Wealth creation, $8,000. Infinite banking, $10,000 for you to learn this type of information, right? A Facebook community valued at $10,000, but generational impact is absolutely invaluable, right? Because you have to understand that 1, if you get your affairs in order, 2, if you set up a trust estate, now you are going to be changing the trajectory of your family, right? Your kids' kids, because now you're going to be raising them to be trustees, right? Because they're going to be the successors of the actual trust estate. So you're actually going to be breaking generational curses. And so that is absolutely invaluable, right? And so the value is $95,000, but what I want is for us to work together. So we have 3 offers. The first one is do it yourself, where you can take our course. There's 42 video modules. You get the 3 trust template, which is the business trust, the family trust, and the tax exempt trust. You get lifetime access to the course. You get all the resources, which is all the templates that you're going to need, right? So, for example, your board meetings, your promissory notes, your donation receipts, everything that you think you might need, you're going to get it in resources, and then you're going to get ebooks, right? So the ebooks are the books that I recommended, right? What Would the Rockefellers Do? The Art of Passing the Buck 1 and 2, right? Those books are valued at over $700, and you get them included into the program. And then you get the Facebook community, which has hundreds of people, and we are all trustees and going through this whole process, right? And so the course is $997. The second option is you could do Done With You. Done With You is where you get 5 group calls, Zoom calls, and this is done in a workshop. So the workshop is Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Mondays, we set up the business trust. Tuesday, we set up the private family trust. Wednesday, we set up the ministry trust and we become ordained ministers. On Thursday, we start establishing trust corporate credit. And then we go through our board meetings and we do our promissory notes for banking purposes. And then Friday, we transfer our assets. So if you have a house, we're doing quick claim deeds. If you have a car, we're doing bill of sales. If you have a company, then we're doing business purchase agreements and amendments through the Secretary of State. And then after we transfer our assets, we're going to learn about infinite banking. Okay, so the next workshop is actually coming up next week. So it's going to be Monday through Friday of next week, the 23rd to the 27th. Okay, and the Done With You is $2,500. And then the last one is Do It One-on-One, where you get a minimum of 5 private Zoom calls. It might take more calls just depending on how many assets you have, or if you have a complex business structure. And then you get your 3 trust set up, you get that individualized support, because some people, can't commit to doing it on in a group style. And then you get access to the course and the workshops, lifetime access. So the private sessions are $5,000. Okay, so if you're interested, then you can go to wealthytrustee.com, and from now until when the workshop starts on Monday, we are offering 20% off. So if you're interested, then you can use the discount code TRUST20, okay? And here is our contact information. So if you have any questions, you can email us, you can call us, you can visit the website, or you can visit us on social media. What I want to do now is I want to show you what what an actual trust looks like, okay? All right, so this is what a trust looks like. Like I told you guys, I'm just going to scroll down so you can see, right? So like I told you guys, it is a contract, right? And so what we do together is we break down every single paragraph, right? So you see here that this trust is 51 pages. So I literally go through paragraph, explaining it to you so that you understand what you're operating, right? It's very important for you to know the contents of your trust. All of this stuff is customizable. So if you see stuff in red, it's stuff that you want to tailor to your business or to your family, or however you are specifically structured, okay? So this is what a trust looks like. And then I want to show you what our program looks like. So this is our program. It is, like I said, it has 42 video modules. And so we will be bringing you through this journey where the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to learn what a trust estate is. So you're going to learn what is a trust and the different parties involved. And then you're going to actually start learning about the trust. So we go through the declaration, through the articles, through the bylaws, and all the other sections, right? There's a section A, B, C, like that, right? So we go through everything, and then we show you how to set it up or customize it, and then how to apply for your EINs. And we do that for all three, right? So for the tax exempt, for the private family, and for the unincorporated business. And then we go through tax strategies, because one of the trusts is a tax exempt trust, right? So you need to learn how to operate or govern that type of entity. And then we show you how to file taxes for the other entities that are for profit, right? They're required to file a 1041. So we provide you with the 1041s and the W-9s and whatever other resources that you might need, okay? So we give you the tax strategies that you need in order to reduce your taxes, especially reduce it by 60%. And then we teach you about asset protection. So the first thing you need to do is take inventory of your asset, and then you know what you want to transfer into the trust. So we show you how to open up a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your businesses, how to do your board meetings, and how to invest, right? So we show you how to build corporate credit so that you can use that corporate credit in order to invest in stocks, crypto, real estate, or whatever type of other investments you want, right? If you want to acquire other businesses, you can, okay? And then, like I said, we have the resources and we have the ebooks for you, okay? So that's it for the program. Now, what I want to do is I want to invite my partner, Mondo Grimes, on so that he can tell you guys a little bit about infinite banking, okay? So, Mondo, let's see.
Yes, indeed. Good evening. How you doing?
Hey, Mondo, thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Right.
Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Mondo Grimes. I'm the president and executive director of AMG and Associates, and partner with 7 Ways to Wealth, Christina Yvette. And we are going to briefly talk about infinite banking, give you guys a 30,000-foot view of how to exercise this strategy with the tool of an IUL. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully there'll be no scribbles on it, Christina. So let me share my screen here and get us going. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. All right. And we're good to go. You can see my screen, correct? All right. Let me know we're good, Christina. You can see it?
Absolutely. You're good to go.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about the power of an IUL. You heard Christina go over some of this information, and we're going to talk about being your own bank. Okay. So what does that even mean? Being your own bank? Well, first we got to understand how banks operate. That's the first thing. This illustration is going to show you how banks function. All right. Now, obviously on the left over here, you see, someone counting money. This is you, your paycheck, whatever it is. And traditionally what we do is put our money in the bank in the middle. Okay. And we take it out when we need. But what the bank does is that they don't put it in vaults and just hold it hostage. They actually invest the money. Okay. They take our money that we put in our checking and savings account and they invest in what's called BOLI, bank owned life insurance. Okay. And what they do is they take out policies, IUL policies on all their employees. Okay. Because they have an employer-employee relationship, which creates insurable interest. So that means they're legally allowed to take out policies on their employees. Well, what they're taking out is IULs that create cash value. Okay. And what do? These things down here, the policies that they take out accumulate value of 500 to 600 times the return on the money. Okay. And they leverage this money with strategic partnerships, big buildings where you see the corporate name at the top of the building, stadiums, arenas, you name it, big salaries, etc. And then they turn around and use the same money to leverage it into credit card loans, business loans, mortgages, things of that nature, to turn around and loan that money right back to who? Us. This is how they operate. Okay. Actually, what's interesting, and Christine, I don't think I told you this, but one of our staff members, he was the CFO at a major bank over BOLI. He was the BOLI accountant. Okay, so there's a lot of intel we have regarding that area of business. But so just to give you an example, like, well, what are you talking about? Banks taking out life insurance? Yes. Here is a census from this year. Okay, or last year. I'm sorry. Well, you'll see that the top tier banks, and you probably see your bank on here somewhere. This is how much life insurance assets these individual banks have right now. Okay. And they're using, this is how much assets, how much cash value they have in life insurance. All these major banks right here. Okay. This is public information. All right. So that's kind of an example of how big this tool is. If the banks are doing it, I wonder if we can. So I get this question a lot, Christina, are these tools for regular people like me? I mean, I saw Bank of America on there. I saw Chase. I'm not Chase, right? I can't do, well, hold on. Yes, there are tools out there. Here's what I mean. An IUL, Index Universal Life Policy, is like the Swiss Army knife of wealth. It can be used in so many different strategies. Number one, infinite banking is probably the most powerful tool that you can use, how you can use this strategy. I'm sorry, how to use this tool. Second, some people use it for savings accounts, project funding, death benefit, of course, because it's a life insurance policy, retirement funding, income replacement, private lending, and college funding. Some of our clients use it for every single one of these things here. Some of our clients use it for a handful of these things. That's the beautiful thing. It's a buffet, and you can pick what you like to use and how you want to leverage this policy and this tool for your family. Okay. Now we get this a lot. Well, I already have a 401k. I'm straight. I'm good. I don't need something like I got 401k. That's cool. 401ks are great. They're awesome. But you also have to understand what kind of power they have versus what power an IUL has. 401k policies, 403bs, they're awesome. They're awesome plans, not policies, plans. They're awesome. Okay. But there's realities with them too, you need to understand. Okay. There's also a reality with an IUL. If you look at a 65-year-old individual with a 401k, starting out with $858,000 in the retirement savings, this 401k obviously is not a life insurance policy, so it has no death benefit. Okay. And they're scheduled in retirement years to take out $129,000 annual withdrawal in their 4 retirement years. That's pretty solid. But here comes Uncle Sam. See, because now your tax bracket is higher than it was in your earning years. That's the thing people don't think about. You may be in a lower tax bracket in your earning years, but because now you have all this cash sitting there waiting to pay you out in your retirement, you have increased your tax bracket. So now you're paying $32,000 in taxes with a net of $97,000 annual income. Not bad, still solid, but you gave the government 32 grand. But here's the issue. In 9 years at age 74, this person runs out of money. And now they're going back to work because they outlived their retirement. And I know we see it a lot. I've seen it in my own family even, okay? Now I'll go over here to the IUL. We're starting with less money, $709,000 versus $858 in retirement savings in the policy, okay? There's a death benefit of $864,000 for a death benefit because it's a life insurance policy. We know the 401k doesn't have that. And then we look at $97,000 as annual income, 0 taxes, Zippo, which means that you take home $97,000. I know you all can see the difference between how these two perform. Okay, and at age 100, this individual receives $3.3 million for his family, and it receives that along with the $3 million death benefit, and both are income tax free. Okay, this is a powerful illustration to show you that both are phenomenal products, but they perform differently. And all too often, I can't stress enough, we talk to people every week that are running into issues with their 401ks and 403s and looking at how can they create a better retirement or even save their retirement where they don't have to go back to work or whatever the situation may be. We're having these conversations constantly. So how do I become my own bank then? How do I have my own BOLI situation? Here's what we do. Christina has educated us on a trust and what we do with a trust, okay? And she said, you know, pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. So what does that mean? You skip this institution right here. So you get your paycheck. And so instead of just putting it in, in the bank and then, paying your bills like she mentioned and all your expenses, she's saying, hold on. Okay, they give you your money, wherever you get it from, work, offering, inheritance, doesn't matter. You get it right here and you put it first into your policy. Why? Because the money you put in there is going to have uninterrupted compounding interest. It's going to grow. It's a tax shelter as well. You can leverage it for several things: income replacement, private banking, all the same things that the banks are doing with BOLI. But this is not BOLI. This is you. Okay. And then you look at the death benefit coinciding with it, living benefits, as well as collateral against any sort of loan you take out against the policy. The death benefit is the collateral. And in our consultations, you get your trust rate. You sit with us after you get your trust rate. What we do is show you how this operates. It's a very simple process. It's not complicated. One of the key words that Christina used early on, she said, liquid. This is just like going to the bank and making a deposit and making a withdrawal is really no different. Okay, it's that liquid. All right, now we're unlocking infinite banking. This is what Christina was talking about earlier. Now, what is it? What is infinite banking? It's a financial method that uses a permanent life insurance policy as your very own personal bank. That's what we're talking about, okay? You can use it for several different things that we talked about earlier. Infinite banking, you can use it for savings. You can use it for college funding. You can use it for investment properties. You can use it for all types of things. Private lending, okay, like banks do. So it's an extremely powerful tool. And what we do is show you how to leverage this asset in your trust for your family, for your business ventures, and anything you want, not just for you, but also for generations to come. Extremely powerful tool. A smart savings account. People say, man, well, I got a lot of money sitting in my whatever bank savings account. That's great. That's awesome. How much interest are you getting on that? Right. Hardly anything. Well, individuals who understand the IUL, they don't park their money in the bank. They park their money in an IUL. Because number one, it's gonna accumulate uninterrupted compounding growth. The death benefit is there as collateral, so you could take out loans, but your cash value never decreases. Your floor always goes up. It never goes down. And we teach you that in our consultations. Okay. Some benefits about IULs for infinite banking being your own bank. Number one, Insurance is the safest industry to invest in. Number 2, uninterrupted compounding growth. Number 3, it yields 5 to 6 more times than a long-term CD. And number four, guaranteed returns. Let me say that one more time. Guaranteed returns, because they put a floor in it. The policy mirrors the S&P 500. It is not in the market. It mirrors the market. So we can follow it. It's doing great. We're following it. When it's doing poor, guess what? We stop mirroring it. We stop it at the floor, so you never lose. We can choose which index that we want to attach your policy to. You can choose which index you want to follow. And the policy is built to where if the market starts tanking, we get off the ship. We're not going down with it. So it's very, very safe. More benefits. You can access your money at any time without penalty. Tax-free loans, as we mentioned. You can allows you to retire 100% income tax-free, and there's no reporting to the IRS. Well, that's a nice benefit. That's 7 benefits. Well, there's 4 more. If you need a loan from your own policy, there's no credit checks, no financial statement requirements for loans. There's no repayment terms required. There's no collateral needed for the loan because the death benefit is the collateral, as Christina mentioned. And as I mentioned earlier, easily accessible, liquid cash. Okay. Who uses this strategy? Okay. Banks, as I said, operate in this every day. Hedge fund managers, equity fund managers are leveraging these types of policies every day for the cash value. But who does it? Ray Kroc, Walt Disney, John McCain, J.C. Penney. That's how they started. Real estate investors, President Biden even, and all the banks that we mentioned earlier. So this is not something that's like, oh man, I didn't know about it. It's got to be whatever. No, well, I always tell people, just because we didn't know about it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you didn't know about it. And the great thing is there have been some successful people that we follow. We actually are customers of theirs, or we're followers of theirs, or whatever. Or we've been to Walt Disney before. And guess what? We enjoyed an experience at Walt Disney, and they started that business with what? Cash value IULs. Okay. This is our team at AMG. Lastly, it's me in the middle, obviously. We have our advisors, our wealth management specialists all around here, around my little face there. We've got on-staff CPA, wealth management specialists, tax specialists, our own underwriters, marketing department, and sales directors. So with that said, we are in 100% support of 7 Ways to Wealth and what Christina and the company is doing to equip people with trust and help everyone get their affairs in order, not just for this lifetime, but for generations to come. And we are delighted to be partners, and we're happy to help put your first asset into your trust once you get all that done, and look forward to talking to you in the course next week. Thank you for listening to what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Mondo. Thank you for teaching us about what an IUL policy is and how we can effectively build wealth utilizing an IUL policy. It is extremely powerful. So if you don't have a policy yet, you definitely need to get a policy. But one thing's for sure is that you want the trust to be the owner of the policy, the beneficiary of the policy, and the payer of the policy. Is extremely, extremely powerful. So with that being said, we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. We're going to do Q&A for about 20 minutes. So I see Kima Thompson. And then I saw some stuff in the chat too. So do you have a question? You can come off of mute.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you guys so much for this wealth of information. I wanted to know, will the instruction on how to structure the IUL, will that be in the 7 Ways of Wealth, or is there like a separate purchase for Mondo's teaching?
Great question. You can start off, Christina. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, thank you, Mondo. Sorry about that. So so we do have the foundational information inside of 7 Ways to Wealth. We do have trainings that are over 2 hours long, where we're teaching you exactly how to flow your money, from the trust to the IUL and borrow it back out. So you have the digital version, which is a course, and then you have the live teachings from Mondo. So I'll let him take it away.
Absolutely. So once you go through the recordings, you go through the teaching in the course, like you mentioned, at that particular point, then you book time with myself or one of my partners, and we actually build a catered to you IUL based upon your needs, desires, the ways you want to function, and we show you what that looks like. Okay. That is a part of the plan when you work with Christina. Okay. That consultation is a part of it. Okay. When it's time to execute your IUL, then that's a different deal regarding the insurance carrier that we align you with. However, as far as the consultation, that is definitely a part of us building something for you. That is a part of the plan when you work with 7 Ways to Wealth.
Okay, sounds good. I have one more question. So I'm a swing trader, sometimes a day trader. So would you recommend me put my brokerage account in a trust so that I could collect gains tax-free?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So if you have your brokerage account owned by a trust, or if it's owned by an LLC and the LLC is owned by the trust, then at that point in time, because you're reducing your taxes, that means you're reducing your capital gains too. So it is a very good tax strategy. So you could reduce your capital gains down to 0.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Kima, for being here. And thank you for asking that good question. Next, we have BB.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wealth of information that you guys are relaying to us. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. So for the IUL, and with IUL, I just want to know what the difference is. I feel like I do know, but I just want a correction, if anything. So how is it different from a whole life insurance cash value policy? I believe that the IUL, it gives a higher payout. I'm thinking, well, educate me.
No, that's a great question. It's really easy. So a traditional whole life policy has a fixed interest rate on the cash value accumulation. Okay. It could be 4.25, and that's what you're going to get every year, period, point blank. It's consistent. It's a good thing if that's what some people want to do. It's consistent, but you're going to miss out on a lot of gains because on the index side, when the index universal side, you are following and mirroring the market. Again, it's not in the market. So we're able to mirror what the market is doing. So for instance, let's say 1 year it's 8%. If you had a whole life, you give me 4.25. We've seen up to 15%. But if you had a whole life, you'd be getting 4.25.
Gotcha.
In the index, you see what I mean? So it's actually just as safe, honestly, because in the IUL side, like I mentioned, there's a floor that's built in. And the way we structure it, the floor is 1.25. If we're hitting 1.25, we got bigger problems on the earth, seriously, if the market's going that bad. And so, for instance, we were getting 1.25 in the middle of COVID. But
Gotcha.
what was the market? Negative 30 something.
Yeah.
But we have a floor where you're still getting 1.25, so you never lose. Or a whole life, 4.25. Now, if it's better than 1.25 during COVID, but what about 2021 when the policies we write were upwards of 18%? See?
Yeah.
The other policy still is 4.25. You know what I mean? So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good info. Thank you.
Yep.
And then my question is for Christina. When you were talking about the trusts, and I'm sorry if I'm not making sense because I'm just grasping this. So you were mentioning that an entity can be your beneficiary. Like, for example, I don't have children, and if I'm putting money into my family trust and I'm paying out or distributing whatever, I don't have kids to give units to or anything like that. So if I don't know if I'm saying the right thing, but I think you said an entity or living people can be your beneficiary.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically what we do is we will have a trust be the beneficiary of another trust. So
Okay.
that's one thing that you can do. Also, you want to think like, if something were to happen to you tomorrow, like who do you want to inherit your stuff, right? So you might want to put a sibling there or a parent or a cousin or someone until, it changes and if you have children or if you change your mind to another beneficiary, if that's what you wanted to do. But if not, you can choose a charity, a corporation, or another trust to be your beneficiary.
Mm.
Yeah, and then another thing is that like I said, the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiary, for those three positions within the trust estate, they can be entities. So the grantor could be a trust. The trustee could
Okay.
be a trust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, that might work for you to have, a trust be the beneficiary, or if you have, a next of kin that you want to, temporarily put in there until something changes in the future.
Okay. And if it's an irrevocable, what I was thinking is it's not able to change. I mean, if I create an irrevocable trust, I'm not able to change any of those things. So how am I able to change the beneficiary?
So the only person in an irrevocable trust that has irrevocability is the grantor. As long as you are not the grantor of the trust, then you are able to change everything. So
Gotcha.
you do not want to be the grantor of an irrevocable trust. That is yours. You want to be the trustee. So you can't be both. Okay, you can only be either or. Okay, so the grantor can only be the grantor. The grantor cannot be the trustee and the beneficiary. Okay, so with that being said, because you want to maintain control of your assets, your funds, all of these things, you are going to appoint yourself as a trustee. And then let's just say that you appointed your mom or your dad as the grantor. So that person is the one who can't change the trust, who cannot terminate the trust, and who cannot take back property from the trust. You as the trustee can do all of those things. You do not have irrevocability. So you can change the beneficiaries, you can change 10 sentences inside of the trust. If you did a board meeting yesterday and you needed to make changes, you can make changes to the board meeting. So you have what we call full discretion. Okay. So the types of trust that you would be setting up in the program are discretionary trust. Though that's another category that I didn't get to mention because I told you there's hundreds of trust. So one of the types of trust is a discretionary trust versus a non-discretionary trust. A discretionary trust is where the trustee has full discretion. So if there's something that is not mentioned inside of the trustee is going to have full discretion to be able to move forward with that thing, right? So if you need to make amendments, you have full power to do that. If you have a non-discretionary trust, that means that if it's not in the trust, the trustee cannot make the decision and it cannot be done. So the type of trust that you would be setting up is a discretionary trust. You do want discretion.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, BB. Thank you for being here and asking those fabulous questions. So who do we have next? We have Brian.
All right, how you doing? Good evening, Goddess. So I had a whole lot of questions, but I'm gonna leave that for like a consultation or something.
Yeah,
So,
the link is in the chat if you want to book a call with me for anyone who is either not able to ask any questions or who has multiple questions and they, have any like intimate situations that they want to discuss.
okay, one of my questions was with the one-on-one trust, the one that's for 5,000, how long do you support us for? So if I was to choose that one with the one-on-one, which is the third package, so how long do I get? Is it like one-on-one, like you assist me and you show me things, or how does that work with the one-on-one?
That's a good question. Thank you, Brian. So with the one-on-one, it is going to be me and you on Zoom. One-on-one, right? So each session is about 60 minutes. Sometimes it goes over depending on your structure, the complexity, how you're customizing your trust, things like that. So sometimes it'll go over, probably by 30 minutes or so, just depending, but usually it's 60 minutes. So typically you will have a minimum of, 5 to 6 Zoom calls. That's the fastest that you can do it, but some people, they go upwards of like 12 Zoom calls. So I tell people that it can take anywhere between like 6 to 12 weeks, because you have to understand that it's everyone's situation is not the same, right? Some people come in with no assets and then they're going to create their first 2 and 3 assets. And so, for example, one of the things we do is we build business credit. And so it takes 30 days. It takes 30 to 45 days for you to even generate a paydex score, but it takes the bureau anywhere between 2 to 30 days to issue you a 9-digit number. So we have to do a little bit of waiting so that you can build up that trust corporate credit so that we go acquire your assets. So I tell people, typically it will take anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, just depending on how fast you are too, because one thing that you have to do is you have to get your trust notarized. I've seen people get their trust notarized the same day, and I've seen people wait a whole month to get their trust notarized. So typically it can take, anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks, but you have that extended support. So we can go literally how fast as you want or how slow as you want, but as long as we get everything done, which is you setting up your 3 trust, you opening up your bank account, you setting up business credit, you transferring your assets, and you're able to acquire assets. Okay. So as long as we get those done, then you have extended support too. So extended support is my one-on-one clients, they have my personal cell phone number. Everyone else has the community line. And so everybody got the community line. It's all over the internet, right? So they have my personal cell phone number. So literally you text me, call me. So you have a more more individualized relationship with me, but I walk you hand in hand. So it's way different from the other two, right? I'm actually holding your hand. I'm actually setting up the trust for you. With the other two offers, you have to set up the trust yourself. So with the course, you download the template, you watch the videos. With the workshop, you download the template and you watch me on the workshop, and then you are doing it on your end. So with the one-on-one, I'm actually doing it for you, and we're going through all of the sections, provisions, customization, everything together. So it is for people who have like complex structures, multiple assets, or do not have their schedule is like very, all over the place, and they can't attend group calls, or they need the accountability, and they don't want to do it by themselves because they want to make sure everything is done correctly. So so you have extended support. So it's really like however long you need it, but everything else is lifetime access, right? The course is lifetime access, and the workshop's lifetime access. And then whenever something comes up, like you have my direct number, you call me, you email me, you have my team's information. So I walk you through everything. And Mondo does the same thing too. So he holds your hand through the whole process as well.
Okay, thank you for answering that. My last question is, do you have any experience with working with senior citizens in this process of setting up a trust? And the only reason why I ask is because I eventually would like for you to consult with my parents who are seniors. So I wanted to see if you had any experience with that, because I know seniors can be, it could be a, they just think differently, and, it may be more of an explaining issue in layman's terms.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And I totally understand that. And yes, a lot of my clients are in their 60s. Some are in their 70s. And those are the individuals that actually, need it the most, because they've acquired a lot of assets. They have retirement accounts. They have all this stuff, and they have all these children, and they don't have their affairs in order, or they thought that their will was good enough, and their parents, their children are like, Mom, you're gonna make me go to probate. Like, come on, help me out here. Help me avoid the process. So I have a lot of clients that are older in age, 60 and 70 years old, and we get through it. So the way that I explain things, I'm not sure if you picked up on it. I break down everything in like elementary terms, like really easily digestible. So and I have patients too, which is something that I found, like, I think that's what you're alluding to, which is what you have to do with seniors. So absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And Mondo, too. He has experience with senior citizens.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't have any questions right now for Armando, so maybe next time, but I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for being here. Yes, absolutely. Next, we have Cree. Is it Cree? CREE?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here.
Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your text. That's my daughter. But my question was, you said that the trust is the guarantor, the payer, and everything. I don't know how that works. It's like 3 into 1. So how did that work that you could control it if the trustee is all 3 of it?
Oh yeah, no. I said that the grantor cannot be the trustee or the beneficiary. That's what I said. So that you have to choose one person to be the grantor, and they can only serve as the grantor. They cannot hold another position in the trust if it's an irrevocable trust.
Okay. And thank you for answering that. But I also, you said something that the trust is it. I forgot. I should have wrote it down. It's 3 things that the trust is.
Yes,
and
you're
I'm
talking
like,
about.
Where do you?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. So you're talking about in regards to the IUL policy, right? So the trust is going to be the owner of the IUL policy, is going to be the payer, meaning making the premiums or depositing money into the policy, and is going to be the beneficiary of the policy. So we're just talking about the insurance policy. Please don't get confused with like the beneficiary of the trust. Okay. So, so with that being said, and you're going to be the insured. So let's just say that the trust did an application and applied for an insurance policy for you. If anything were to happen to you and the trust is the beneficiary, then the trust is going to get that death benefit. So it's going to go to the trust and not like a human person.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, where do you fit in the picture for all 3? All 3 get the trust is doing. That's what I was just asking. But you answered it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for asking that good question.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Antonio?
Hey, good night.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, and you?
Doing good. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us, sir. So my question is, do we have to be in the US, sir? What happens if you're in Canada or outside the US, can the trust still work? And also, what happens if you have assets, like let's say in other countries, like let's say you have stocks or real estate in other countries? How would you go about setting up a trust?
That's a good question. Thank you. So the trusts that we are dealing with currently are domestic trusts. So they are only going to be able to be operated in the US or in US territories. So they won't be able to work internationally. So you would need an international trust. So right now we are working on making an international trust available for everyone that's in the program. So hopefully by either December or January, we have that completed and we can upload those modules to have that fourth trust, access available to you guys. But as of right now, all three trusts are domestic. And what was the second part of your question? I think it was if you had assets in other countries. So the best thing for you to do is for you to utilize an international trust if you have assets in other countries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Antonio. Kima?
Hi, I'm sorry, just really quick. I've gone over like a ton of your YouTubes. I follow you on Instagram. So the one thing that the one thing that I've been wondering, and I haven't heard you answer yet, you've never gone over the foreclosures. So I've lived in my home for like 17 years, and I have been in foreclosure like twice. How would a trust prevent me from foreclosure? I saw it on the screen, but you never went into depth, about it. And then also I know that I wouldn't have to pay taxes if I were to put it maybe in the 501 charity trust. I wouldn't necessarily have to pay property taxes anymore. Is that right?
Yes,
So
that's correct.
Can you just kind of go over like how a trust, me putting my primary property in a trust, could prevent foreclosure? Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So, so two things. When it comes to foreclosure, everyone is in different stages of foreclosure. So it's hard for me to speak about like your specific, stage because, foreclosure is involving a lawsuit, right? And so with that being said, primarily what you want to do is you want to avoid foreclosure with a trust, right? So if they've already initiated like the foreclosure proceedings, then it's kind of too far gone. Because what they can do is they can go back and say that you are trying to avoid paying for the home or something like that, right? And so that is risky. That is risky for you to do it in the middle of a foreclosure. But if you were to put the house into a trust prior to any foreclosure proceedings being initiated, or if they were reversed and then you were back in like good status and stuff, then what can happen is that your trust is protected from going through the foreclosure process, because it's very hard for them for the creditors to go after your trust, right? First, they will not even be able to serve your trust. And even if they're able to serve your trust, because it's an irrevocable trust, usually an irrevocable trust will end up it depends on the type of trust that you have too, okay? But the trust that I'm talking about is like a common law non-statutory trust. With that type of trust, you have to, your court proceedings have to be in a competent court system, which means that it can't be held in a statutory court system. So, for example, in your local county, all of these court systems or, all of these courts are statutory courts. And so it's not competent enough to even carry your case. So then your case has to go, to a higher level of court, which is like Supreme Court. And so it will be very hard for the creditors to go after your trust. So it can prevent you from even going that far into foreclosure. But if it's already been initiated and they've already served and done everything as far as, the foreclosure process with your personal name and Social Security and all these things, then it is going to look like fraud if you try to put your house into a trust in the middle of a foreclosure. So you want to prevent it before it happens. That's why I always tell people, don't wait until you get sued in order to protect your asset. You need to protect it first, because the county, the state, everyone is going to try to snatch your house away, the bank, everyone. And so you want to protect your house by putting it into a trust, because then the creditor, which is the bank, can't come after your house. Another thing you had mentioned was about the 508. You're absolutely correct. With the 508, it's only exempt automatically from paying federal taxes. All the other taxes, you have to apply for exemption. So if you wanted state tax exemption, if you wanted sales tax exemption, or if you wanted property tax exemption, you have to apply. So if you decided that you wanted to put your home into a 508, then you can go down to your county and let them know that it's owned by a nonprofit, and then you would apply for property tax exemption. You will qualify, and they will exempt your property taxes. With a 508, you can only qualify for property exemption, tax exemption with only one property, because you have to understand a 508 is very similar to a church. And so you have one church, or, one location, one piece of land. And so you are exempt from paying property taxes on that land or property. I hope that helped.
Oh, this is so good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Kima. Thank you. Antonio, I still see your hand up. I don't know if you have a question or if I didn't lower it. Let's see. I have a few questions in the chat. So the first one said, did I hear Christina say that there is 20% discount until the class on Monday? That's correct. Yeah. So from now until Monday, so the class starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So from now until when the workshop starts at 7 p.m., you can enjoy 20% off of all of the offers. So the do it yourself, the done with you, or the one-on-one. And the discount code is TRUST20. Let's see if we have any other questions. I think Mondo was going through the chat too. Do we have any questions, Mondo?
No, I handled the one. So.
Oh, okay. You handled one. Okay. So
Yeah.
This one says, how long does the nonprofit take to form? So it depends on how fast or slow you want to go. So you can set up a trust literally in one day and get it notarized in one day. I've had clients who they'll set up their trust at 9 a.m. and by 5 p.m. it's notarized and they're already opening up a bank account. So it depends on how fast you want to do. So you can do it within 24 hours if that was your goal. So it doesn't take that long. And it's the trust is already designated as a nonprofit, as a 508. So you don't have to do an application for a 501c3. You have automatic tax exemption, and it's the only exception to not having to do a 501 because of the separation between church and state. So we know that. So with the 508, one thing I didn't mention is the other names that it goes by. So it goes by 508c1a, faith-based organization, church, convention, nonprofit. So, there's a bunch of other names, but usually it's either religious or educational. You don't specifically have to have like a denomination, or the faith doesn't need to be like religious. It could be faith in anything, right? So if you have faith in nature, then that is your faith-based organization is faith in nature. So that is, specific to how you want to run your organization. Trustees can add beneficiaries and make changes to the trust. Yes, that is correct. Kids probably got to hold on to the laptop. I don't know. What else? Okay, I don't think I see any other questions. BB, do you have a question? Let me see.
I just literally answered it in my head. I just connected the dots.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. I think we have probably like 2 or 3 more questions because it's 10 o'clock. So let me see. Are there specific elements or language that must be included when structuring declarations? So we give you templates which has the appropriate structure or language that you need that's going to hold up in court. And if you want to add anything, you can. If you want to delete anything, you can. But you can pretty much leave the trust declaration the way it is. But you will be able, like, once you get into the program, because I'm not going over a trust in this webinar. So once you get into the program, you'll learn the language. The affiliate support video is still a go, yes. We do have an affiliate program. So if you guys are either in the program or if you're benefiting from the program, or if you want to refer trusts to other people, or if you want to refer 7 Ways to Wealth to other people, or if you want to refer IULs to other people, we have affiliate programs. So you can join our programs and then you can refer it out to people that you know that need this information or that want to set up a trust or IUL policy. Can you put your home into a trust if you have a mortgage? Absolutely, yes, you can. So your mortgage is going to stay intact. It is totally legal for you to change the ownership of your house or change the deed from your personal name into a trust. It's not going to trigger a due on sale clause, and everything's going to remain intact. You would just need to notify your mortgage company to let them know that the payer is the trust and not you. Let's see here. Can all members of the trust donate 60% if they're W-2? Yes, absolutely. So you guys are individuals. You're not the same person, right? So for example, I just did this, was it yesterday? The days are mixing up, but anyways, I have a client, it's a husband and a wife. And so the husband donated 60% to the 508, and then the wife donated 60%. So it's separate, right? Those are 2 different jobs, 2 different incomes, 2 different, everything. And they receive 2 different donation receipts. Absolutely, yes. So somebody asked me, did you enjoy your trip with your brother? Yes, I did. Egypt was amazing. Thank you so much for asking. Oh my God. Y'all need to go to Egypt. Yeah, you need to go to Egypt. Oh my God. Listen, I went and swam in the Red Sea, you guys. Okay. Like I was doing biblical stuff. Okay. Like like your girl is a believer over here. Okay. I was in my godly mode. So, do you recommend going over strawman information? I do not go over strawman information. So I have a partner, her name is Dion. She goes over strawman information and status correction. So I will always refer you to my partner. Just like I don't, set up policies. I refer you to Mondo that sets up policies. Okay, so you get whatever it is that you need, you get referred to my partners that specialize in those things. So if you want to do status correction and strawman information, you can learn that from Dion. And that was funny. Okay, I can't with Luther. We're gonna have to talk about this offline. Mondo, is your business a franchise? Is it?
I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah,
Is my
you know
business
what? Yeah,
No,
they
it's not.
sent it to
No, it's not a franchise. It is my my own company that was founded 10 years ago.
from a will. So can you go from a will to a trust? Absolutely. Everything that is inside of your will can go inside of your trust. So a trust is superior to a will. A will end up in probate. A trust will avoid probate. So whatever you have inside of your will, put it inside of your trust. So for example, one of the things that we have inside of the trust is the beneficiary information. So for example, in your will, let's just say that you want the house in Georgia to go to your daughter and you want the house in New York to go to your son, right? Well, in the trust, you can do that as well. You can make that designation where you specify which asset goes to which beneficiary. So with that being said, we don't have any more questions. I don't think so. Cree, do you have a question? I see your hand up.
Yes, ma'am. It's just one more question that I have. Like, could you use it? You say it's like a nonprofit organization once you do get a trust. Now, can you go use that exempt, like you exempt paying taxes if you go to the grocery store or counter or something like that, like a regular 504
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
or
So if
503?
you Right. So if you apply for, so in the program, we show you how to apply for sales tax exemption. You go through your state in order to get like the card that you need for to show at the store or the merchant or wherever you are making these purchases, and you're exempt from sales tax. Absolutely. But you have to apply for it. It's not automatic. So with the 508, you only have automatic tax exemption for federal taxes. Every other tax you have to apply for.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, perfect. Let's see, we have two more questions and then we're going to wrap it up. The first one says, is it true that in 2024, the federal government said that you can no longer get anonymous trust? So it depends. So so the federal government, they want to know the beneficial interest, who has beneficial interest in these corporations, okay? And it's whoever has a minimum of 25%. So if you have 20%, then you don't have to disclose your identity. If you have a minimum of 25%, then you do, right? But if you have your corporation or company in a trust, then the trust has 100%. So you are going to be safe with that new regulation from the government. The next question says, I would like to know where can I get the information for the prices of the different programs? So you can, one, you can text the number and we'll send you the recording. And then two, you can visit the website. So the website is wealthytrustee.com. You could also book a call. So I'll have, I'll put the links back up. I don't know what, hold on, let me just copy and paste it. So, so you could visit the website. You could also book a call. And then you have our contact information. So I would love to go over that information with you. Who said that? Oh, it says iPhone, so I can't even address you by name. But Anyways, so that's it. We're all done. Brad said, thank you, 7 Ways to Wealth. Thank you, Brad. Thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening. We really appreciate you spending the last 2 hours with us. And the only thing that I have to tell you is just take action on the information that Mondo and I provided tonight, because like I said, like if you're intentional about building generational wealth, this is the way, the right way for you to build wealth, the right way for you to transfer your assets, the right way for you to protect your assets. Okay. So if you have any, if you have any other questions or concerns, you can contact us offline, and everyone have a good evening. Thank you so much. The recording is going to be on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and then you can watch the recording and take notes, and then you can follow up with us at a later time if you have any other additional questions. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.